I'm an alcoholic and my name is Donna. Good morning. I feel like I'm talking really loud. I could probably do it without the mic, I'm so loud. I want to thank Jim for inviting me to speak at your 23rd anniversary. That is a huge accomplishment for a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. So congratulations to the group, for everybody who's put this together and who have decided to come and join us today so that we can have a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Can't do it without you, so thank you. I'm so glad Chris, my brother from another mother, is the other speaker. We didn't know each other, but we know each other from another time, and I adore him, so it's really, I feel like I have family all around me. I'm going to take a moment because we didn't really say a prayer, so. And that is also for the alcoholic who still suffers in and out of these programs. I am an alcoholic, and that's the first thing I have to remember in the morning when I get up, and my name is irrelevant, but it is Donna. And I do this work the way it's laid out in this book with a sponsor who does the same. And I have made my amends, and I practice all of these steps daily, especially number 1. Because powerlessness is my problem. It's a big problem for Donna. I have had a spiritual awakening as a result of doing this work, these steps, and which means that I am awake to life in others, and that is the only reason you got me to come here on a Saturday morning and speak, because other than that, I'm very selfish. So, but today, because of the work that I do, that you all taught me, I am able to put myself aside and do the next right thing. And the 12 steps teach us how to be there for others. And this is a way that I can share my message of hope. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, I've got to hit the thing, I'm 2 minutes down. Okay, I'm not going to bore you because this stuff can kind of go on and on and on. And I get really, really, really excited about my recovery today. It's frightening how excited I get about it. But my first day, I was not excited. The first time that they told me that I was probably not going to be able to have alcohol again, that I was probably an alcoholic. It was an outpatient program in Connecticut somewhere, because it was another geographical cure. I thought that I was going to die, and I panicked. And what did I do? The first thing I knew best to do. I went out and got wrecked. And so I want to tell you a little bit about who I was, because you're not going to understand how I can be excited about recovery today. It's a big difference. I've had a transformation that only came about by doing the work in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Not by 13 years of therapy, not by Eckhart Tolle books, not by yoga, and not by meditation, okay? Those are all wonderful things that have come into my life as a result of following the words in this book that tell me that there are other ways to keep my mind open to other religious beliefs, or books. There's other things we can look at. But the primary thing here is for me to stay sober, is to come to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, be a part of the fellowship, have a message of hope, and do this work on a daily basis, especially number 1. So, I'll tell you how I do that. I got sober, my anniversary date is June 16th, 1989. That is an irrelevant date, and I'll tell you why. I put the drink down. I did the first part of step 1. My life before that, before putting that drink down, was complete and utter chaos. I was in a complete gray out my entire life before I put that drink down, and for a while after I put the drink down, but I'll get to that in a minute. So I was given a drink at the age of 4 years old to sedate me because I was born a very angry baby. And my mother said that my whole life, that I came out screaming and pissed off. So I don't know what happened. I mean, I kind of have put some pieces together, but that's how I started. So I was given alcohol to calm me down. And back in the day, back then, I'm not going to say those years because it was a long time ago, that's what we did. That's how people were. And so I don't blame anybody for giving me the alcohol or making me an alcoholic, but I do know that at 4 years old, in my feety pajamas, I would go down to the basement into my grandfather's old Knickerbocker wooden cases of bottles where he would bring them back to recycle, and get money for them probably. I knew at 4 years old that when the foam settled, if I went down the next day, there would be a little bit of beer in each one of those bottles, and I would go from top to bottom down every single one and suck them dry. And I acquired a taste for alcohol that was, to this day, when I smell beer, it's a trigger for me. I mean, that's not a lie. And it's been a long time. So I ran with it from that point. I realized somewhere in my psyche as a child that if I did this, when they gave this alcohol to me every night, then I wasn't getting smacked, I wasn't getting screamed at, and I wasn't getting abused. Doesn't take a dog to understand every time you get a treat, right? Just saying. So I kept going with that, and my life got so colorful at a very, very, very young age. I was in jails, institutions, and very close to death a number of times. I did make it to college, but I was asked to leave in my third semester, politely asked to leave. Don't come back, Donna. And I mean, I maybe went to one class, and I remember throwing up on the field for that class, and I never went back to that class because I was hungover. I know that I went into the military after that, and when my time was up at 3 years, thankfully I drank with the correct battalion commanders, because when my orders came up to go to career or go home, they looked at me, pulled the papers back for career, and they said, go home. I mean, like, I really very barely made it with an honorable discharge. There was a lot of wreckage, a lot of rage, a lot of violence throughout my entire drinking career. And, I thought that, my first drink where I actually went out and got alcohol. I was in a blackout. And when it says in the first couple of chapters about the ease and comfort that alcohol brought, I knew the ease and comfort, and I also chased a blackout. Like, I knew that I wanted to be as far away from me and you that I could be. Every single time I put a drink to my lips. But I didn't understand that it was happening because I had an allergy to alcohol. I didn't understand that I had an obsession of the mind. I didn't understand the phenomenon of craving that we talk about. And thank God we have a book that describes who we are and why we are and how we get to be better from this disease. So anyway, I did a lot of geographical cures, and I moved to New Hampshire. I was in the post office and again in trouble, and I closed my eyes and I picked out five spots on the map in New England where I would put in for a transfer. And I went and I took the transfer to Keene, New Hampshire. They were the first people that wanted me to work there and said yes to my transfer. So I said yes. And so in 1989, June 16th, I moved there in January. June 16th, 1989 was when I had my last drink, because I went to a class at Keene State College, and there was a man there that ran, I don't know if some people here are old enough to know, sorry, it's not an insult, Dublin, New Hampshire, Beach Hill Hospital. So he was the director there for 1,000,000 years, and he was putting on a class that weekend at Keene State on alcoholism. And I thought I wanted to be a drug and alcohol counselor because I was really good at it. So God bless you, and thank God I didn't make it through that either. So during this class, this guy, Dick DeSantis was his name, the instructor, and he said, who here is a social drinker? And I raised my hand, and a bunch of college kids raised their hands. At this point, I was like, my mid-30s, late 30s. I was an adult learner. And he said, who here is a problem drinker? And well, I had known it. I'd already been in jail a few times and 1,000,000 accidents. And back in the day, they didn't really do DWIs. So a bunch of times, police took me bleeding to the hospital and would call my mother and blah, blah, blah. So probably if the rules were now back then I would be in prison. So he said, who here is a problem drinker? So I knew I had some problems when I drank. So I raised my hand. And this other guy raised his hand, and I was like, okay. And he said, well, I don't get it. This is the instructor. He said, if you have a problem with drinking, then why do either one of you still drink? And I raised my hand, and he didn't raise his hand, other guy. And I went, shit. And so I was like, this is not good. And so he looked at me, and he said, well, Donna, so if you have a problem with drinking, why do you still drink? And I said, it's just a problem once in a while. I mean, What's the big deal? And so after that class, I knew that I needed to run out of that class and not talk to him, like get out of there as fast as I could. I knew deep in my guts to run. And so I went out to my car and had a huge spiritual experience. It was the very first one that I've ever had in my life that I know of as far as recovery goes. And I put my hand on the door and I burst into tears and I said, if I don't go back in there, I'm going to die. And if I go back in there, I'm so scared, God knows if I'm going to die. And I went back in there and I said to him, the kids were all gone, and I said, what do I need to do to fix what's wrong with me? And he said, well, for this meeting, for this class, you need to go to 3 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I'd never even heard of you people, really. And he said, I mean, I probably hadn't, I just went la, 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 la. But he said, and you're going to write a paper on each one of those meetings on what you observe. So I went to my first one, and it was wicked smoky and gross, and I'm like, I'm not going in there again. And then I went to another meeting on a Friday night in Keene, New Hampshire, and this woman was giving out 24-hour desire to stop drinking chips, and I had no idea why, but I got up, and I went and got that chip, and I got the first hug. I feel like, honestly, the first hug of my life that meant anything to me. And that was June 16th, 1989. So I have not had a drink or a drug since that day, but Donna was still Donna roaming around the world, right? And for 6 months in that meeting, I didn't understand you guys, so I would say, hi, I'm Donna and I'm here to observe. And that's how I would, like, I didn't know. So I kept listening to you and I identified. And for me in Alcoholics Anonymous to this day, I don't care if it's this meeting, a speaker meeting, a discussion meeting, a big book step study meeting, a Zoom meeting, a field meeting. If I don't identify the minute when I go to that meeting, then I've got trouble. So I try to identify with every alcoholic that I talk to or hear on like any meeting I go to, because to me that is the thing, that was the cement that binded me and kept me coming. So finally, at some point, I heard that, what you were talking about the disease and blah, blah, blah. And I said, geez, I think I'm one of them too. And I was like, okay, I'll start saying I'm an alcoholic. Because, I mean, really, the evidence shows every time I open my mouth in these meetings, like that I'm just throwing up this war story about what it was like for me. And people would just keep saying, keep coming back, Donna, keep coming back. And I'd be like, okay, so I kept coming back. For 14 years, I kept coming back. I had sponsors here and there, and but I never, ever went even to the second half of step 1 or anything beyond that. So my life was insanity. And some of the people in here knew me when I was first coming around, and maybe even a little after, and it was still rageful and violent. I was having fist fights outside of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and going in and bragging about having a higher power because that's what you were saying. So I just mimicked. That sounds good. They seem happy. I have a higher power. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Really, basically the bottom line is at 14 years of sobriety, or people call it sobriety, I've heard that. I love some of the things people come up with. I'm like, I like that. I'm stealing it. And I don't make this stuff up. So at 14 years, a woman, and my grandmother died in 2003, and she died a horrible death, and I blamed that woman for every single thing that was wrong with me. Every single thing that happened to me, she was the blame. And you'll know later in my 4th step, I had 120 resentments against her. She is a woman that I'll get to in a minute, but she died, and I was left at the end of that night after her funeral looking in a mirror at myself. And I saw myself for the first time ever. Like, I never even really knew I have identity issues. I mean, I was gay bashed and this bashed, and I mean, I couldn't be my authentic self, and I never knew what I looked like. My father left me. They said he was a bastard, but I thought he was pretty handsome. And so, I don't know, I saw a picture of him once. And, so I always had this identity issue, and when she died that night, she gave me, I know, the gift of seeing myself that night. And I thought, she's gone, and I'm still miserable. Like, what is wrong with me? I've been doing AA, I've been blah, 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 doing this, pour me another drink. And the next morning I went back to Keene, and I went to a morning meeting, and I looked a mess. I mean, I was just a disaster. I did not know what to do next. And this woman in this meeting, and I think some of you know her, Mary from Keene, her whole department shouted that she had a real solution. And I will take lines out of this book now and then because they really mean a lot to me. And she was somebody I hated for 14 years in this program. Hated her. We grunted past each other. And like all of a sudden she appears, I hadn't seen her for a while, and she appears with this message of hope, and she's really peaceful, and now I'm like, what? Now I'm pissed. So I get up and I asked her what she had been doing to feel so much better, and she said, well, you should come to this meeting tomorrow night and Sunday night. It's a Big Book Step Study meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. You should check it out. I said, oh, for God's sakes, I've heard about them. I don't really want to do this at all. And the next day I got up, I showered, I put on a decent outfit. I went into that meeting, and at the time they were only listening to cassettes because a lot of people hadn't been through the process to share. And I left that meeting and I ran to my car and put my hand on the door, and I burst into tears. And I said, if I don't go back in there, I'm going to die. And if I do go back in there, I don't know what they're all about, but it's scary enough that maybe I'm going to die too. But I chose to go back in. It was like another one of those turning points. Freaky. I mean, this sounds like, to me when I tell this story, I always think, oh my God, they're going to think I'm so bullshitting. But it's the truth. Like, that's exactly those 2 times with the door handle running out to the car. I went back in, and she began me on a journey that it's been a freaking ride, I'll tell you. And I went in and I restudied the chapters, and we underlined, and I read, and I did, and I finally understood who I was. That, not only was I maladjusted to life and a maladefective, or whatever, and, all of that stuff, but I had this allergy, that is the reason why I was like I was when I was actively using. And now, because of the obsession of the mind that Denise talks about so well in these groups, now I understand that I am hopeless. I am without a solution. And that's what Sandy said to me when I first met her. You're without a solution if you don't have God. And so I was like, yuck, like I hated God. Like I was a major God hater. Like I was in Catholic school. I was abused by priests. I was beat up by nuns. Why the hell would I want God in my life? Like, I don't understand how he's going to help me. You know what I'm saying? So she just, everybody was patient with me, and they just said, look, you just need to you're going to be able to have your own conception of God, whatever you want to call her, it, him, they, trees, whatever. But you have to just know that it's a power greater than you, Donna. That's it. Like your self-will and you trying to control your life to think you were warding off bad people and bad spirits and whatever didn't work. Like, listen to you. I mean, you've been in a blackout your whole life. Blackout. You know what A.A. Albert in New Hampshire says? And he's a wicked smart psychologist. He said, the only thing that you can't get back in your brain is the time that you were in a blackout. There's no way you can ever get that back. When I think about how much life I have been out of, I have been a hollow, walking human being, even through sobriety, because I still was basing my life on Donna and self-will and what I thought should work, how you should be to make me feel better, how the lies that I told myself about all the people in my life. The lie I told myself about my grandmother, how awful she was. Let me tell you a little story about my grandmother quick. She was an orphan, okay? She got an orange and a pair of shoes once a year as a gift. She married an alcoholic. She worked as a presser ironing for 36 years in a sweatshop, okay? My mother married this idiot. Well, I don't have resentments, but he was an idiot. And so he was like this wonderful man. She married him. He beat the snot out of her so bad she lost a baby. My mother was black and blue and showed up at my grandmother's doorstep with black and blue with 2 babies. And my grandmother had just bought her first house, saving $1 a day on the water. It was $12,000 at the time. And she just got her life the way she wanted it. And here we come. An angry baby, her daughter that's like probably she's got to get her stuff together because she's been beat up and whatever. And we're rebelling. We don't know what's going on. And she sacrificed the rest of her days until 2003 for me. And I never just had an orange and a pair of shoes once a year. I had trips to the Cape, trips here, everything we needed. We went to Catholic school. My mother didn't pay for that. My grandmother did. She was basically my mother. My mother was pushed aside. My grandmother took over and gave me everything. So those turnarounds for 120, hello. I know what the truth, right? What's the truth, Donna? And now I know today that my grandmother, that next day when I met Mary in that meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous with a message of hope to just take the simple toolkit, put it at our feet, that was the gift from my grandmother. And since then I have had gone to mediums in places where there's hundreds of people, and she has come to me. I have been the one standing and my grandmother has spoken to me. We have a great relationship today. It's perfect. So anyway, we went through the stuff, I did my 4th step, I did my 5th step. 6 and 7 for me is on a daily basis, honey. It does not end when it says you have now done the 7th step. 6 and 7 are ongoing because I'm still Donna. I'm still Donna. I'm still an alcoholic. My friend Bruce says, what is it like? You can't take a pickle and bring it back to being a cucumber? I mean, I'm Donna, folks. I'm the pickle. And I mean, I don't mind it because my relationship, I believe that, and I do a lot of extra stuff outside of AA, like to grow my spiritual life. And the way that I stay awake to life and others today is because I keep doing that, like, what's Joe doing? What's Jim doing? I hear them speak in meetings about a new book or a new this they're doing. It's like, I pay attention. Do I want to feel better today? Yeah. So I'm always seeking, and the book talks about that. If you seek him, he will come, right? He'll be there if you seek. And there's work to be done. Every single morning I get up and I do my prayers, and the first thing I say is, God, I am powerless, and my life is unmanageable without you. That's the part I didn't get for 14 years. But it is manageable with you. So I offer myself to you to build with me and do with me as you will, and I do the rest of my 3rd step prayer, 7th step prayer, yada, yada. But my powerlessness prayer and my powerlessness journal I write every morning about something I think may be coming up. After I say my prayers, God reveals it to me somehow, and I write out how I could be powerless and what it's going to look like that day and how I don't want it to look like that day. And I ask for help. I ask for help. And I know that I cannot be left unattended. I don't care if my date was 1920 when I got sober. I'm still a crazy, rageful, that's my person. Like, I don't act out on it anymore, but the fears that I have about life, the fear that I had about coming here, speaking in front of people, 1989, I would have just given you the finger. No, Jim. I mean, like, I know today that, like, this is what I do, right? I speak to people and I let them know how much I care about them. And I do my latter steps on a daily basis. When the shit hit the fan and the pandemic hit, we had to go to Zoom. And I told my sponsees, this is Alcoholics Anonymous right now. This is the face of Alcoholics Anonymous. What lengths are you willing to go to? What lengths am I willing to go to on a daily basis now that it's changed? And I had to speak the first night that they started Zoom in one of our groups. It was like the first, I think we were shut down, and then I had to be the guest speaker at a meeting. And I'm sitting in front of this computer, and I am not an IT person. And my lip was shaking so bad and sweating. I mean, really, I should have just done the meeting on the toilet. I was a big disaster. And that began my journey with the last however many years we've been doing this. I mean, I had to do it. I had a sponsor that said the same. What lengths are you willing to go to stay sober today, one day at a time? Joe and I were just saying, it's one day at a time. I'm still Donna. I'm still an alcoholic. What do I need to do on a daily basis to keep myself right with God? To be on God's will, not Donna's will. Nobody ever does anything the way I want them to. Ever. I mean, let's face it. I can walk through my life. I have the most wonderfully God-centered life, like spirit-centered life. On the way here, I'm able to say, you know what, God, like, I love birds of prey. Like, I saw the stellar sea eagle, by the way. If anybody knows about that, you need to look it up. There's only 4,000 in the world, and I saw him this winter when he was in Booth Bay Harbor. But I was on the way, and I go, come on, God, let's go. Show me. Because I like to see hawks. I know that I'm on the right path. It just kind of is a spiritual thing for me. Back in the day, do you want to know something? In June, I got sober. When the fall came, I didn't even know there was foliage. I never knew, and I grew up in Massachusetts, that there was such a thing as foliage. It was like somebody turned the friggin' lights on. It was like a discotheque. And by the way, thank you, my name isn't Helena, but when I walked in here, I thought, that's sweet, wrong name. But anyway, Jim said there was something else going on. But anyway, like I see things, like I'm so awake, it freaks me out. But like I'm not going to stay awake unless I do work with others, come to meetings, do my ladder steps, do the work in the morning, pray and meditate. It's all suggestions. Why do you think it's a suggestion? They suggested I put the drink down to have a good life. I did it. Why wouldn't I take the suggestions and try to build some sort of conversation or relationship with a power that's greater than me in step 2? It's, I'm willing on a daily basis to turn my will and my life over to God, God's watchful attention. I feel like God is watching over me, whatever that is. Don't be thinking I'm like a Catholic or this or that. Not that that's bad, but I just say God because I just think it's easier. And whatever his name is, I'll know someday. He's going to tell me. I don't want it to be soon, but... I feel like, and then like I was willing to do my 4th step, willing to talk about how, like that I have to keep getting better. That 6 and 7 is going to be a daily thing for me. 7th step prayer, help me to be, take away my difficulties in the 3rd step so I can go out and do your bidding. Those are the things that I'm willing to do on a daily basis so that I can keep being more awake and keep my conversation growing with people, with God. God speaks through all of you guys. That's why when I was coming here, Jim's like, these people, like you've been coming here. I used to live in Keene. I'd come here, I'd go to Leominster. You guys were here for me when I first started. I need you. I still need you. I needed you then, I need you now. And, I'm willing to take the suggestions on meditation, do my seeking and my exploring on my own about what I want that to look like, okay? So it's up to me what I want that to look like. But do I do it? Abso-friggin-lutely. This morning, do you think I was lazy and said, I'm going to drink coffee, I got to go to Worcester, I'm not going to meditate? Hell no! I knew that if I do a lot of sound meditation with vibrating bowls and crystal bowls and Tibetan bowls. The vibration for me, I don't know if it's because I'm an adrenaline junkie and really addicted to it, but I feel like the vibration for me takes me to a place that's like friggin' crazy. That's all I'm going to say. So that's the stuff I like, but I do a lot of other kind with other people. When it's my wife's like, you want to do this one? Sure, I'll do it. Because that's my new thing, right? I'm addicted to being more awake and happy and peaceful. I don't have to fight before I come into an AA meeting because somebody looked at me funny. I've ruined a lot of people physically, mentally, and spiritually. I'm not proud of it, but that is something that I have to remember. No morbid reflection, but I have to remember who I can be if I don't keep doing this work on a daily basis. So I pray, I meditate. I've learned how to do a Tonglen meditation because I work in a hospital and I friggin' hate it. And so, I kept writing out 11ths every night, and it started getting repetitive. And my sponsor's like, something's missing. What do you want to do about it? And I said, I'm going to figure that out. Because, I've been around long enough to know she doesn't need to tell me. Not anymore. So I started doing some research on Tonglen meditation. There's a big way to do it, and there's a quick way to do it, which Donna likes. And what it is when I feel like something bad is going on, whether it feels bad in me, or I can tell someone else is feeling bad or angry or frustrated, I breathe in that emotion, whether it's their anger or sadness or my anger and frustration, and I hold it, and then I breathe out peace, and it's friggin' gone. It's gone, because that's helping me pause, like it says in the 10th step. It's helping me pause so I can go on to the next right thing, the next right thought. So I have a lot of fear. I just don't act on it as much anymore, but I still do act on it. And Joe and I were talking before the meeting. That's why we have all this friggin' stuff we do. It's like I have to figure it out if I had a bad day. Like, I have to write about it. What did I do? Why am I doing it? Do I owe an amends? I can make amends in the moment really easy now because I hate making appointments for amends. So I'd rather just do it spot on, spot check right there. And it's easy because I know I'm a dick. So it's like, I do. I have a tone. I'm from Massachusetts. I have this, and the way that I present is not always slick and gentle. So I know that I say, you know what, I'm really sorry. And I said, I didn't mean to speak that way. Like, this was my intention. I did not intend to make you feel blah, blah, blah. And I will try harder the next time. And my work friends are like, okay, whatever, Donna. I mean, that's like, we know who you are. And so, and then, the spiritual awakening, working with others, it just comes with doing all that stuff before it. Gradually, it just keeps building. It's not a one time you've done this step and bam, you've arrived. Hell no. I just had something it's weird that I'm seeing Chris because we have these people in common, but I had a very painful event take place on Wednesday night. And because of the work that I do, because of what you've all taught me, because of your example, right? I've worked on me and my relationship with God. I was able to sit in this meeting calmly and not react, not be rude, and inside I was feeling hurt and anger, and I was going through it. I meditated, I grounded myself in the meeting and got myself together, and I was able to cause no harm and walk out of there feeling like more close to God than I ever have in my life, and it made me way psyched to come here to speak to you, because I was God keeps revealing himself, and it's a freak show. Like, let it happen. If you're new today or coming back, just calm down. Like, just do the shit. I'm telling you, I'm sorry, but it's true. It's like, it's okay. Find somebody you relate to. I don't care if people in here have my number and give out my number. I don't care if you know my last name. I, have been through a lot too, so let's talk about it. Call me when you're in the middle of a debacle and you want to talk to somebody. Like, call anybody. Ask for help. I asked for help from a dude in Worcester. Worcester? I'm pulled over, my GPS went on, I'm like, oh no, don't do this to me. Because, I'm a victim, even in the car with GPS. And some dude was walking by and I said, sir, can you tell me where Hamilton Street is? And he's like, he had a wicked accent like he was Jamaican or something. He's like, and I'm like, oh God, pay attention, Donna, because you're going to end up, just focus. And it's just, God reveals himself to me all the time. And, I just cannot say enough for Alcoholics Anonymous. It doesn't matter what the group conscience is. Shut up and listen. Whether it's a speaker, a discussion, reflections group, big book step study, the only thing different about this group than others is our group conscience. And all it is just be quiet, do the work until you don't have to be quiet anymore. And the more you listen, the more you'll have that revealing, that God or that higher power revealed to you to let you know it's not you. That's all it is. It's not you. And so I really want to thank you all for inviting me to your wonderful anniversary. I can't wait to drink this coffee, and peace to all of you.